You match with someone attractive, their photos are good, their job sounds respectable, their vibe over text is fine. You show up, you sit down, you order a drink, you do everything you're supposed to do, and the strangest thing happens. Not rejection, not butterflies, not excitement, not disgust, just nothing. You nod, you laugh at the right moments, you say the lines, but inside your chest, there's no pull, no hunger, no warmth. And on the drive home, you can feel your mind searching for the explanation. Maybe I'm too picky. Maybe I'm emotionally unavailable. Maybe I'm broken. Maybe this is what dating is now, just polite interviews. But here's the line that cuts through all of it. It's not that you can't find someone, it's that you can't feel someone. And if you felt that numbness, you're not alone. You're living inside a system that quietly trains numbness as a survival skill. Dating apps didn't just change how we meet, they changed how we evaluate humans, how we interpret attention, how we process rejection, how we experience attraction. They changed what your nervous system expects from romance. Constant novelty, constant validation, constant optionality, constant exits. And then we act surprised that commitment feels heavy, that conversation feels performative, and that intimacy feels risky. This video isn't a rant, it's a diagnosis. We're going to talk about the hidden injuries most people can't name, but everyone can feel. Option overload, attention inflation, dopamine loops, commitment allergy, the ghosting era, and the trust collapse. And what to do if you want your humanity back. And we're going to answer the question that starts wars in comment sections. Are dating apps empowering or emotionally corrosive? The answer is darker than either side wants to admit. They're empowering and corrosive. That's why they're so addictive. That's why they're so hard to quit. That's why they're so hard to talk about honestly. Before we blame the apps, we have to tell the truth about the environment. The West built a world that's extremely efficient at living and surprisingly bad at belonging. We moved away from family. We replaced third places with subscriptions. We traded neighbours for followers. We traded shared rituals for private routines. We made life smoother, but we made connection thinner. And then we acted surprised when people started feeling hollow. Here's the part nobody wants to admit. Dating apps didn't create loneliness. They industrialized it. They turned it into a marketplace. And marketplaces don't optimize for love. They optimize for engagement. Because love ends the transaction. But pursuit, uncertainty, longing, comparison, those things keep the machine running. So if you feel like dating has become exhausting, mechanical, dehumanizing, it's not because you're weak. It's because you're trying to build a sacred bond in a profane environment. Option overload is not a dating problem. It's a brain problem. When choices become infinite, the mind changes how it chooses. You stop choosing based on connection, and you start choosing based on anxiety. What if there's better? What if I'm settling? What if the next person is the one? Even when someone is genuinely good, you feel a quiet itch. It's not that you dislike them, it's that your mind keeps opening the door to hypothetical perfection. And that creates a specific kind of emotional damage. You lose the ability to be satisfied with real humans, because real humans aren't optimized. They're inconsistent, they're moody, they're complex, they have rough edges. A catalogue trains you to expect clean edges. A person will always feel messy compared to a fantasy. So dates start to feel like auditions. And when dating becomes auditions, people stop showing their real selves. They perform. And you can't fall in love with a performance. Option overload shows up as you're talking to 3 people and genuinely don't feel close to any of them. You keep swiping even after a great date because you're afraid to commit. You feel suspicious of your own attraction. You confuse peace with boredom. You keep searching for a spark that feels like a drug, not a bond. And here's the cruel irony. The more options you have, the more pressure you feel to choose perfectly. So people freeze, they delay, they keep things undefined, they stay in talking stages for months because committing feels like losing the whole menu. You can call it modern dating, but psychologically, it's the paralysis of too much choice. Attention is currency in the app era, but it's not stable currency, because attention is mass-produced now. Compliments are cheap, interest is abundant, flirting is low cost, validation is on demand, and when supply explodes, value collapses. That's inflation. So what used to feel meaningful, a "hey, I like you," now feels like noise. And this hits men and women differently. For many men, the attention economy feels brutal and uneven. You feel invisible unless you're exceptional, so you optimize, you perform, you strategize, and you slowly lose sincerity because sincerity feels inefficient. For many women, the attention economy feels like a flood. Too many messages, too much sexual escalation, too much low-effort pursuit. So you filter, you guard, you detach, because attention doesn't equal safety. Then both sides misread each other. Men interpret women's guardedness as arrogance. Women interpret men's performative confidence as manipulation. And the truth is, both are adaptations to an inflated attention market. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Dating apps are not designed like libraries. They're designed like casinos. You swipe. Sometimes you win. Sometimes you lose. Sometimes you almost win. And almost win is the most addictive reward on earth, because it keeps the brain chasing. This is called intermittent reinforcement. It's what makes slot machines addictive. And your nervous system doesn't care that it's dating. It responds to the reward pattern. So the app becomes a loop. Swipe, match, dopamine hit, uncertainty, craving, swipe. Now here's the psychological damage. Real attraction is slow. Real bonding requires repetition. Real intimacy requires the courage to stay through mild discomfort. But dopamine-trained dating expects instant chemistry, instant certainty, instant excitement, instant validation, instant outcomes. So you meet a normal, decent person, and your brain says, boring. Not because they're boring, because your brain is overstimulated. It's like trying to enjoy silence after living inside constant noise. This is why so many people can't feel anyone anymore. Not because people got worse, because your nervous system got trained to require a higher dose of novelty to register excitement. And then we call it the spark. We romanticize what is sometimes just stimulation. Not always, but often enough to matter. Let's be honest, a lot of people now chase the spark the way they chase caffeine. They don't want love, they want a spike. But love doesn't always spike. Love often builds. It begins as curiosity, then comfort, then trust, then admiration, then attachment. Apps reverse the order. They demand excitement first, then they hope attachment follows. And when attachment doesn't follow, people assume the person was wrong. But the person isn't wrong. The method is wrong. Your brain is being asked to bond through a system built for browsing. Browsing does not create bonding. Browsing creates comparison. Comparison kills intimacy. Once your nervous system adapts to constant optionality, commitment starts to feel like a threat. Because commitment means closing doors, choosing one path, tolerating uncertainty, accepting imperfection, staying when novelty fades. Apps train the opposite. Keep browsing, keep your options warm, keep exit routes open. Never fully invest, never fully risk rejection. And now we have a culture where people say they want a relationship, but behave like relationships are traps. They want intimacy without dependence. They want loyalty without accountability. They want security without restriction. They want a person without being a person for someone else. That's commitment allergy. Not because people are evil, because their nervous system learned that attachment equals vulnerability, and vulnerability equals pain. So they avoid the pain by never fully arriving. They stay half present. They keep one foot out the door. They keep the maybe alive. And maybe is a powerful position, because the person who refuses to define the relationship controls the relationship. That's not romance, that's leverage. Ghosting isn't just bad manners, it's a structural feature of low accountability dating. When you meet through friends, there are consequences. When you meet through community, there's overlap. When you meet through family networks, there's accountability. But when you meet through an app, you can vanish. So people vanish. And the person who gets ghosted doesn't just lose a date. They lose trust in clarity. They start reading into everything: response time, punctuation, tone shifts, the gap between messages. They become hypervigilant. And even when they meet someone good later, they carry the trauma forward. I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm not investing too early. I'm not being naive. That sounds wise, until it becomes emotional paralysis. So now we have a dating climate where everybody is braced for betrayal. And braced people don't bond. They calculate. Dating apps don't just show you the market, they shape your personality. They can turn you into the consumer, always shopping, always comparing, always dissatisfied. The performer, always optimizing photos, lines, timing, identity, always managing the brand called me. The cynic, assuming everyone lies, expecting disappointment, detaching before you're rejected. The addict, not addicted to love, addicted to the possibility of love. And the worst transformation? They can turn you into someone who confuses attention with connection. You feel lonely, then you swipe. You get a match, then you feel relief. You feel empty again, then you swipe. That loop is not romantic, it's sedation. Now the question people fight about: are apps empowering or corrosive? The honest answer is, they're empowering for access. If you're in a small town, if you work long hours, if you're shy, if your circle is limited, apps can open doors. But they're corrosive for attachment. They train shallow evaluation, fast replacement, and low tolerance for normal friction. They expand selection, but weaken bonding. They show you people, but reduce people to profiles. They give you attention, but reduce attention's value. So yes, apps can help you meet someone you would never meet otherwise. And yes, apps can train your nervous system to stop trusting human connection. Both can be true. That's why the debate never ends. Men often experience app fatigue as invisibility and humiliation. You send messages into silence. You compete in a visual economy. You feel evaluated in 2 seconds. So you adapt. You become more strategic, less sincere, more guarded, more game. And after enough rejection, many men stop approaching real connection entirely. They say, it's not worth it. But what they mean is, it costs too much psychologically to keep auditioning for basic warmth. Then men drift into substitutes, porn, endless scrolling, gym obsession without community, isolation disguised as independence. And this is where you see the bitterness pipeline. Not because men hate women, because they hate how disposable the system makes them feel. Women often experience app fatigue as overwhelm and threat. Too many messages, too much sexual escalation, too many low-effort conversations, too much ambiguity. So women adapt. They become more selective, more guarded, more suspicious, less emotionally available. And men call it cold. But often it's not coldness, it's defense. If you've been treated like a product long enough, you start acting like security. And then the system creates a tragic loop. Men feel unseen till they perform harder. Women feel overwhelmed, then they filter harder. Men interpret filtering as cruelty. Women interpret performance as manipulation. Both sides get angrier. The app gets more usage. The machine wins. Here's the injury under all the injuries. Apps train us to experience humans as options. And options are not sacred. Options are disposable. So the nervous system stops attaching. Because why attach to what can be replaced? You become less patient with normal imperfection, less tolerant of awkward first dates, less willing to build. You want the relationship to arrive fully formed. But that's not how love works. Love is not found in perfect first impressions. Love is built through time, shared reality, and repair. Which means if you want love in an app world, you need a protocol, not a mindset, a protocol. If you're numb, cynical, and bored by everyone, you may need a reset. Not because you're fragile, because your reward system is overloaded. For 30 days, delete the apps or remove them from your home screen. No boredom swiping, no late-night validation checks, no just seeing what's out there when you're lonely. Replace the slot machine with baseline regulation, Sleep, sunlight, movement, real food, real conversation with friends. Your goal is not purity. Your goal is to recover the ability to feel subtle attraction again. Because overstimulation makes everything feel grey. Consumer dating asks, what can this person do for me? Connection dating asks, what happens in my body around this person over time? If you only chase the spark, you'll keep chasing novelty. Instead, measure, do I feel calmer around them? Do I feel safe being myself? Do they show consistency? Do they handle small friction without games? Do I respect their character? Those are bonding signals, not dopamine spikes. If you must use apps, treat them like a tool, not a habitat. Rule: 1 app only, 2 days per week, 1 hour total per week. Set a timer. No endless browsing, because endless browsing trains dissatisfaction. And don't swipe when you're lonely, bored, horny, angry, stressed, drunk. That's when you're most likely to bond with fantasy and punish reality. Texting creates false intimacy. It creates storyline bonding, not reality bonding. So stop building relationships inside a chat box. New rule: if a conversation is good, suggest a simple date within a week. Coffee, a walk, 1 drink. Short, low pressure, human. Your goal is to meet a person, not a narrative. Here's a hard truth. You don't need 50 conversations. You need 1 person you can actually learn. So when someone is decent and consistent, stop shopping while you're dating them. Give them attention, time, a real chance. Not forever, just long enough to allow bonding to happen. Because love doesn't happen at swipe speed. It happens at human speed. This is the deepest fix. Apps succeeded because they replaced something the West lost: community. So rebuild community. Gym class, run club, volunteering, hobby, workshops, faith communities, dinner with friends of friends. Not for dating, for belonging. Because belonging makes you less desperate and less cynical. And grounded people choose better. Practice commitment in your life. Show up consistently, keep promises, follow through, stop flaking. Build a rhythm. When you become a person who can commit, commitment stops feeling like death. It becomes normal. Here's a brutal test. If the connection only exists through texting, it's not connection, it's stimulation. So try this. After you set a date, reduce texting. Watch what happens. If the interest collapses without constant stimulation, you didn't have intimacy, you had novelty. Real connection doesn't need constant feeding to survive 48 hours. Vibes fluctuate, values persist. If you choose only vibes, you'll keep bouncing from one hit to the next. Choose integrity, kindness, effort, accountability, emotional maturity. Those traits survive stress, kids, money problems, time. Chemistry without character is a short story. Character creates the long story. If you can't feel anyone at all, if everything feels pointless, if you're isolating, don't just call it dating app fatigue and move on. It might be burnout. It might be depression. It might be stress overload. Consider speaking with a licensed mental health professional. Your romantic life is downstream from your mental health. Here's the final truth. Dating apps didn't destroy love. They revealed what happens when love is forced to exist without. Community, accountability, patience, shared reality. In the old world, love had gravity. In the new world, love floats. So you must become the gravity. Not by manipulating people, not by becoming cold, not by hating the other sex. By rebuilding structure. Structure in your week, structure in your choices, structure in your boundaries, structure in your community. Because the cure for dating app fatigue isn't another swipe. It's a life that makes love feel possible again. And remember, it's not that you can't find someone, it's that you can't feel someone. But you can relearn how.